Don't leave me now. Min-jae's voice cracked as gunfire erupted outside the hospital room. Amina screamed, her body convulsing as water gushed between her legs. The belly beneath her torn gown glowed with an eerie amber light, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Nurses shouted over the chaos, their scrubs splattered with blood that wasn't entirely hers. Twins incoming. A masked surgeon burst through the doors. We need to move now. The building shook. Glass shattered somewhere in the distance. Min-jae's fingers intertwined with hers, his knuckles white with desperation. Stay with me, Amina. Our children need their mother. The sigil burned brighter across her swollen abdomen, ancient symbols writhing like living tattoos. She gasped, eyes rolling back as another contraction tore through her. Something's wrong. The curse. Static consumed the scene. The image fractured, rewinding like broken film. 6 hours earlier. Money or your body, Amina. Her father's fist connected with her cheekbone, splitting the skin. Blood trickled down her jaw as she stumbled backward, shoulder blades hitting the cracked apartment wall. I should have turned around right then. But I didn't. And before I tell you why that decision changed everything, subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna, because some secrets are too dangerous to keep buried. I'd rather die than give you either. She wiped crimson from her lips, tasting copper and rage. His bloodshot eyes narrowed. Behind him, 2 men in cheap suits shifted their weight, hands hovering near concealed weapons. The same men who'd made her sister disappear 3 months ago. The same men who'd returned with stories about car accidents and closed caskets. Your sister thought she was clever too. His voice dropped to a whisper that raised goosebumps along her arms. Look how that ended. Amina's fingers found the broken beer bottle on the cluttered coffee table. Glass cut into her palm as she gripped it, warm blood making the weapon slippery. Yemi didn't die in an accident. Prove it. He stepped closer, alcohol radiating from his pores. But first, pay what you owe. The bottle moved before conscious thought took hold. Glass shredded through his forearm, opening a gash that painted the wall behind him. He howled, stumbling backward as his men lunged forward. Stupid girl. Blood poured from the wound, dripping onto the warped floorboards. Kill her. Amina vaulted over the couch, bare feet slapping against broken linoleum. The apartment door slammed behind her as she sprinted down the hallway, fluorescent lights flickering overhead like dying stars. Behind her, heavy footsteps thundered, growing closer with each heartbeat. Seoul's neon-drenched streets welcomed her with cold indifference. Rain had turned the pavement into a mirror, reflecting pink and blue signs in languages she barely understood. Her breath came in ragged gasps, lungs burning as she wove between late-night pedestrians who pretended not to see the blood on her clothes. The Shadow Lord's mansion rose ahead like a monument to power. Tonight was the Air Mother selection, a spectacle broadcast across 3 continents, where desperate women competed for the chance to bear children for Korea's most feared crime lord. Security checkpoints lined the street, armed guards scanning invitation codes with practiced efficiency. Amina had no invitation, no plan, only the certainty that her father's men were closing the distance behind her. Stop. A guard's voice cut through the rain. Identification. She spun around. 3 figures in dark suits approached from the crowd, their faces familiar from countless nightmares. Her father's enforcers, weapons already drawn beneath their jackets. Panic clawed at her throat. The mansion's main entrance stood 40 feet away, guarded by men who would never let her pass. To her left, a service alley disappeared into shadows. To her right, certain death approached with measured steps. The crowd parted around a figure in obsidian silk. Min-jae Park moved through the rain like darkness given form, his presence commanding absolute attention. 28 years old, with sharp cheekbones that could cut glass and eyes like winter storms. The Shadow Lord's heir. The man whose children would inherit an empire built on blood and fear. Please. Amina grabbed his arm, fingers digging into expensive fabric. Play along, he's coming. Kiss me like I'm chosen. His gaze swept over her face, cataloging the fresh bruise, the split lip, the desperate hunger in her eyes. For a heartbeat, she thought he might push her away. Then his hand cupped her jaw with surprising gentleness. "What's your name?" "Amina Hassan." The words tumbled out between ragged breaths. "I need your protection." His thumb traced the edge of her cheekbone, coming away bloody. "And what makes you think I give protection freely?" "Because you're looking at me like I'm already yours." The kiss crashed over her like a tsunami. His lips claimed hers with a possessiveness that stole her breath, one hand tangling in her rain-soaked hair while the other pressed against the small of her back. Cameras flashed around them like lightning, security drones capturing every angle as the crowd pressed closer. "Mine." The word rumbled against her lips, barely audible over the chaos. "You understand what that means?" Before she could answer, her father's men broke through the crowd. The leader raised his weapon, barrel gleaming under the neon lights. Minjae's transformation was instantaneous. The gentle lover vanished, replaced by something primal and lethal. He turned toward the approaching threats, keeping Amina pressed against his chest. "She's my heir mother." His voice carried across the street with absolute authority. "Touch her, and face the shadows." The men froze. Fear flickered across their faces, the kind of terror reserved for legends that walked among mortals. One by one, they melted back into the crowd, disappearing like wraiths. "Smart choice." Minjae's arm tightened around Amina's waist. "Though I suspect they'll return with reinforcements." "They killed my sister." The confession escaped before she could stop it. "Made it look like an accident, but I know the truth." His expression shifted, something dangerous sparking behind his eyes. "Yemi Hassan. Car crash 3 months ago, body burned beyond recognition." Amina's blood turned to ice. "How do you know her name?" "Because I know everything that happens in my city." He studied her face with new intensity, including murders disguised as accidents. Security vehicles surrounded them, creating a protective barrier as photographers shouted questions from behind police barricades. The heir mother selection had officially begun, but the script had already changed. Amina Hassan, bruised, bleeding, and beautiful, had claimed the Shadow Lord's attention in a way no contestant ever had. "Welcome to my world," Minjae murmured against her ear as armored cars escorted them toward the mansion, where survival requires embracing the darkness. The fortress loomed ahead, all steel and bulletproof glass rising into the Seoul skyline. Curse wards, ancient symbols carved into the foundation, glowed faintly in the rain, promising protection for those within and death for uninvited guests. Inside the medical wing, Amina submitted to the required scans with growing unease. The technician's face went pale as he studied the results, hand trembling as he reached for his phone. "Sir, you need to see this." The man's voice cracked with disbelief. "The sigil on her abdomen. It's reacting to the equipment." Minjae materialized beside the examination table, his expression unreadable. On the monitor, Amina's body was outlined in blue light, but her lower abdomen pulsed with golden energy that formed intricate patterns across her skin. "Like Sister's mark," she whispered, memory flooding back. Yemi had carried similar markings, faint scars that glowed during moments of extreme emotion. Their grandmother had called it the family curse, protection and punishment wrapped into one. Minjae's phone buzzed. A text message appeared on the screen, photo attachment showing a blurry figure with glowing sigils, standing in what looked like a hospital corridor. "Sister sighting alive. Ring 3 district. Come alone, or she dies again." Amina's world tilted sideways.
"She's dead."
"I saw the funeral. I buried an empty coffin." Her voice rose with each word. "Right? Should I run or stay?" The question hung between them like a blade, cutting through every assumption she'd built about her sister's fate. Minjae's fingers closed around her wrist, pulse hammering against his thumb. "In my world, the dead have a habit of returning when you least expect them. Every heir mother before you died screaming." Minjae's words cut through the sterile air of the medical wing like shattered glass. "Their bodies rejected the curse that's been bound to my bloodline for 8 generations." Amina sat on the examination table, hospital gown rustling as she shifted away from his penetrating stare. The mansion's lockdown protocols had sealed every exit, transforming luxury into a gilded prison. Outside the reinforced windows, Seoul's skyline glittered with false promises of freedom. What curse? Her fingers traced the sigil markings on her abdomen, still warm from the scanning equipment. You mean the sterility? His laugh held no humor, only bitter resignation. Sterility is just the beginning. The Shadow Lords made a bargain centuries ago, ultimate power in exchange for our ability to create life naturally. Every child must be conceived through ritual, every air mother's body prepared to channel energies that would kill ordinary women. The technician returned with fresh test results, hands trembling as he approached Min-jae. Sir, the hormone levels are impossible. Her body isn't just compatible with the curse, it's enhancing it. Explain. Min-jae's voice dropped to a whisper that made the man flinch. The pregnancy markers indicate twins, but the energy readings suggest something unprecedented. Her bloodline appears to be breaking the sterility curse while simultaneously amplifying its protective aspects. Amina's world shifted on its axis. Twins? But we haven't even. The insemination procedure isn't scheduled until tomorrow. About that. Min-jae's expression grew carefully neutral. The procedure was completed while you were unconscious during the medical examination. Standard protocol for heir mother candidates. Rage flared in her chest, hot and consuming. You did what? Without my consent. Your consent was implied when you claimed my protection. His tone remained maddeningly calm. In my world, survival requires sacrificing certain luxuries, like choice. She lunged from the table, bare feet slapping against cold tile as she advanced on him. Luxury? You violated me while I was defenseless. I saved your life. He caught her wrists before her fists could connect with his chest. Your father's men were regrouping. By tomorrow, you would have been dead or worse. This was the only way to ensure your permanent protection under Shadow Lord law. By making me your broodmare? By making you untouchable. His grip tightened, not enough to hurt but sufficient to emphasize his point. Harm to an heir mother carrying verified offspring is punishable by execution. Even your father won't risk that consequence. The fight drained from her limbs as the reality settled in. 2 lives now grew within her body, lives that would inherit a legacy of shadows and violence. The sigil markings pulsed brighter, responding to her emotional turmoil. How long do I have? 7 months to prepare for motherhood. 7 months to learn how to survive in a world where weakness equals death. He released her wrists, stepping back to create space between them. Your first lesson begins now. The training facility occupied the mansion's entire basement level, a maze of padded corridors and reinforced chambers designed to withstand supernatural forces. Combat equipment lined the walls, blades forged from materials that hummed with otherworldly energy, armor inscribed with protective sigils, weapons that seemed to drink light from the air around them. Young-ho emerged from the shadows like a predator scenting fresh prey. Min-jae's personal guard stood 6 feet tall with lean muscle and calculating eyes that lingered too long on Amina's exposed legs beneath the training shorts. She's fragile, Young-ho observed, circling them with practiced assessment. Pregnancy makes women slower, weaker. Perhaps I should handle her instruction personally. You'll observe only. Min-jae positioned himself between his guard and Amina, territorial instincts flaring. Her training is my responsibility. Of course, sir. Young-ho's smile never reached his eyes. I live to serve. The first session was humiliating. Amina fumbled every blade technique, stumbled through basic defensive positions, and nearly collapsed after 10 minutes of light sparring. Her pregnant body felt foreign and unwieldy. Center of gravity shifted in ways that threw off her natural coordination. Pathetic. Min-jae's critique stung worse than the bruises forming on her arms. A child could disarm you. I'm carrying twins. She gasped for breath, sweat dripping onto the padded floor. Cut me some slack. Your enemies won't. He demonstrated a simple parry, movements fluid as water despite the weighted practice sword. They'll see pregnancy as vulnerability. You must prove them wrong. She tried again, muscles screaming protest as she lifted the blade. This time, Min-jae moved behind her, hands guiding her stance. His chest pressed against her back, breath warm against her neck as he adjusted her grip. Feel the balance, he murmured. The weapon should become an extension of your will. Electric current seemed to flow between them where skin touched skin. Amina's heart rate spiked for reasons that had nothing to do with physical exertion. The sigil markings tingled, responding to his proximity in ways that made her lightheaded. Better. His hands lingered longer than necessary before pulling away. Again. Over the following weeks, her skills improved with shocking rapidity. The twins growing within her seemed to accelerate her learning, as if ancient knowledge flowed through her bloodstream. She mastered blade work that should have taken months to develop, absorbed tactical information like a sponge drinking water. Impossible, Jung-ho muttered during one particularly impressive demonstration. No woman learns this quickly. She's not just any woman. Min-jae's voice carried unmistakable pride as Amina disarmed 3 training dummies in rapid succession. She's mine. The possessiveness in his tone sent shivers down her spine. Somewhere between combat lessons and late-night strategy sessions, the dynamic between them had shifted. What began as necessity was evolving into something far more dangerous. Late at night, when the mansion settled into uneasy quiet, they found themselves drawn together by forces neither fully understood. He would appear in her room bearing medical reports or security updates, excuses wearing thin as conversations stretched past midnight. "Tell me about the curse's origins," she said one evening, curled on the window seat while he occupied the chair across from her. Outside, Seoul's lights twinkled like earthbound stars. "My ancestor made a deal with entities that exist between worlds." His gaze grew distant, lost in memories that weren't his own. "Power to rule the shadows in exchange for our bloodline's fertility. The curse was meant to ensure only the strongest offspring would inherit our legacy. But it backfired. Spectacularly. 8 generations of heir mothers have died attempting to carry our children. Until now." His eyes found hers across the darkened room. "You're breaking rules that have governed my family for centuries. Maybe the curse was waiting for someone like me." She placed protective hands over her growing belly. "Someone whose bloodline carries its own brand of darkness." Before he could respond, her phone buzzed with an incoming message. Unknown number, but the words made her blood freeze. "Your sister sends her regards. She's been watching you train. Impressive progress for a dead woman walking." Min-jae was beside her in an instant, reading over her shoulder. "Security breach. Someone's been monitoring our communications. Or Jung-ho's not as loyal as you think." The suspicion had been growing for days, fed by meaningful glances and overheard phone conversations. "He watches me like I'm prey. Jung-ho has served my family for 5 years without question. Men change when they think they see opportunity." She deleted the message, but its implications lingered like poison in the air, especially when that opportunity involves overthrowing their master. The next morning brought confirmation of her fears. Hidden cameras discovered in her bedroom. Encrypted files on Jung-ho's personal device containing detailed reports about her training progress, biological information, even photographs of her body taken during medical examinations. "Explain this." Min-jae's voice could have frozen hellfire as he confronted his guard in the training facility. Jung-ho's mask of loyalty finally slipped, revealing the ambition beneath. "She's dangerous. Those twins will inherit power that could destabilize everything we've built. I was gathering intelligence to protect you from making a mistake." By selling information to her father? By preparing for the inevitable. Jung-ho's hand moved toward the concealed weapon at his side. "When those abominations are born, they'll be capable of breaking every supernatural barrier that protects our operations. Enemies will use them as weapons against us." If you're watching this thinking, I would have done the same thing, subscribe to Mystic Tale by Luna. Because the choice she's about to make will change 3 lives forever. "You're afraid." Amina stepped between the 2 men, one hand resting on her pronounced belly. "Afraid that my children will have power you'll never possess." "I'm realistic." Young-ho's smile turned predatory. Your father offered me control of his territory in exchange for eliminating the threat you represent. A generous proposal for removing 2 potential disasters. 3 potential disasters. The voice from the doorway made everyone freeze. A woman emerged from the shadows, tall, elegant, with sigil markings that glowed like molten gold across her dark skin. Yemi Hassan stepped into the light, very much alive and radiating power that made the air itself tremble. Hello, sister. Her smile was sharp enough to cut glass. We need to talk. But Young-ho was already moving, curse serum injector sliding from his sleeve as he lunged toward Amina. The liquid inside pulsed with sickly green light, a weapon designed to trigger immediate sterility and explosive cellular death in pregnant women. Perfect timing, he snarled. Let them die during reunion. Looks like emotional shock. The injection was inches from Amina's neck when everything went wrong. Her water broke in a sudden rush, amniotic fluid mixing with the spreading pool of Young-ho's blood as Min-jae's blade found its mark. The twins, Amina gasped, doubling over as contractions began. It's too early. Not early. Yemi's voice carried knowledge that chilled the air. Right on schedule. The curse doesn't follow human timelines. Young-ho's dying words came out as a whisper. Her twins unlock the curse, kill them, break his power forever. Through the haze of pain, Amina understood the true scope of the conspiracy. Her children weren't just inheriting power. They were the key to either preserving or destroying the supernatural forces that kept the Shadow Lord's empire intact. Unlock what? She gripped her belly as another contraction tore through her. My babies, are they weapons? But the only answer was the wail of medical alarms as her body began the process of bringing forth children who would reshape the balance between worlds. Don't take them. Amina's scream echoed through the medical wing as crimson stained the sheets beneath her. The monitors erupted in chaos, heartbeats spiking erratically while Dr. Kim's hands moved with practiced precision between her legs. Min-jae gripped the doorframe until his knuckles turned white, watching the woman who carried his legacy fight to keep their children alive. Bleeding stopped, the doctor announced after what felt like eternity. Twins are stable, but we need complete bed rest for the next 48 hours. Relief flooded Min-jae's features as he approached the bedside. For the first time since she'd known him, vulnerability cracked through his controlled facade. His fingers trembled as they brushed her sweat-dampened forehead. I thought I was losing you both. The confession came out raw, stripped of his usual composure. When I saw the blood, you can't get rid of me that easily. Amina managed a weak smile, though fear still coursed through her veins. These babies are stronger than we thought. Dr. Kim reviewed the latest scans with growing amazement. The sigil energy readings have tripled since the bleeding episode. It's as if the stress triggered an evolutionary response in their development. Meaning, your children are absorbing curse energy at an accelerated rate. They're not just surviving the supernatural forces, they're feeding on them. The doctor's voice carried wonder and apprehension in equal measure. I've never seen anything like it. Min-jae's expression grew thoughtful as he studied the glowing patterns across Amina's abdomen. My family's curse was designed to prevent ordinary bloodlines from carrying our offspring. But your bloodline isn't ordinary. Tell me about the previous heir mothers. Amina shifted carefully, mindful of the monitoring equipment. What really happened to them? The silence stretched too long before he answered. Sarah Martinez died during the 4th month, hemorrhaging that wouldn't stop. Before her, there was Chun Wei, cardiac arrest at 6 months. The curse energy overwhelmed their systems. How many?
7.
Over 8 years. His voice dropped to barely above a whisper. I've been sterile since my 21st birthday, when the full weight of the family curse manifested. Every attempt at conception resulted in death. Amina processed this revelation, understanding dawning like cold sunlight. I'm not the first to survive this long, am I? You're the first to make it past 3 months. The first whose body adapted instead of rejecting the supernatural energy. He sat heavily in the chair beside her bed. I thought I was saving you from your father. Instead, I might have sentenced you to the same fate as the others. But I'm different. You're miraculous. The word came out like a prayer. I've killed for power, manipulated lives like chess pieces, built an empire on others' suffering. But you're giving me something I never thought possible. Life. Hope. Their moment of intimacy shattered when Amina's phone buzzed against the bedside table. Unknown number again, but this time the message contained a photograph that made her blood freeze. The image showed a woman standing in what appeared to be a hospital corridor, face partially obscured by shadows but unmistakably familiar. Sigil markings glowed faintly across her exposed arms, and her stance carried the confident bearing of someone who'd mastered dangerous skills. "The curse isn't what you think," the accompanying text read. "Trust no one, especially him. Meet me at Ring 3 District, midnight. Come alone or disappear forever."
Why?
Yemi. The name escaped as a whisper, laden with 3 months of grief and confusion. Min-jae's eyes scanned the message over her shoulder, his expression hardening into familiar coldness. It could be a trap. Your father using your sister's identity to lure you into vulnerability. The photograph shows details only Yemi would know. Amina zoomed in on the image, pointing to a distinctive scar along the woman's collarbone. "That mark, she got it when we were children, falling from our grandmother's mango tree." Scars can be replicated. Digital manipulation is sophisticated enough too. Look at her stance. Amina's voice grew urgent. The way she distributes weight on her left leg. Yemi broke her ankle badly when she was 16. It never healed properly. She compensated by shifting her balance exactly like that. Min-jae studied the photograph with new intensity, his tactical mind cataloging details. If your sister is alive, why surface now? Why reveal herself after months of hiding? Because she knows I'm pregnant. The realization hit like physical force. She's been watching, waiting for the right moment to make contact. Or waiting for you to become vulnerable enough to manipulate. The accusation stung because it carried the weight of possibility. Amina had idealized her sister's memory, perhaps overlooking character flaws that could have motivated a staged death. But the alternative, that Yemi had been alive while Amina grieved, felt like a different kind of betrayal. I need to know the truth. Then we investigate properly. Surveillance teams, background verification, controlled contact protocols. Min-jae's protective instincts flared. Not midnight meetings in abandoned districts. She specifically said to come alone. Which is exactly why you won't be going. The argument was interrupted by another message, this one containing a video file that made Amina's heart stop. The footage showed Yemi in what appeared to be a training facility, demonstrating combat techniques that surpassed anything Amina had learned. Her movements flowed like liquid violence, blades appearing and disappearing from her hands with supernatural speed. But it was the final seconds that changed everything. Yemi looked directly into the camera, removing a pendant from around her neck, their grandmother's sigil amulet, the one Amina thought had been buried with her sister's body. "Hello, little sister." Yemi's recorded voice was exactly as Amina remembered. "If you're watching this, you've survived longer than I expected. The Shadow Lord's protection is stronger than our father anticipated, but it won't last forever. The curse that's keeping your babies alive will also make them targets for forces you can't imagine." The video cut to black before resuming with text. "The pen proves my identity. Meet me, or watch everyone you love burn." My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone. Have you ever felt that moment when everything you believed just shatters? Tell me in the comments, because right now, I need to know I'm not the only one who's been this afraid. She has grandmother's pendant. Amina's voice came out hollow. "The one with our family's protective sigils. Father said it was destroyed in the car fire. Then either your father lied, or someone removed it before the accident." Min-jae's analytical mind worked through possibilities. Both scenarios suggest premeditation. What if she faked her death to escape the family curse? What if she's been hiding because she was afraid of what our bloodline could do? Or what if she's working with forces that want to use your children for their own purposes? The possibility hung between them like a blade. Amina wanted to reject it, But months of survival in Min-jae's world had taught her that trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Even family bonds could be weaponized by those desperate enough to exploit them. Over the next 24 hours, Min-jae's security teams worked to trace the message sources while Amina recovered from her bleeding episode. The investigation revealed sophisticated routing through multiple international servers, encryption methods that suggested either professional training or significant financial resources. Whoever sent these has access to military-grade communication systems. The head of cybersecurity presented his findings with obvious frustration. The metadata's been scrubbed clean, but the technical sophistication suggests this isn't amateur hour. Could my sister have acquired these skills? Possible, if she had 3 months of intensive training with the right instructors. The man's expression remained doubtful, but more likely, she's working with an organization that provided the technical support. Min-jae dismissed the team before turning to address Amina's growing anxiety. We're going to assume the worst-case scenario and prepare accordingly. If your sister is alive and working against us, we need leverage. Against my own sister? Against anyone who threatens our children. The brutality of his pragmatism no longer shocked her. Pregnancy had changed her priorities in ways that surprised even herself. The twins growing within her had become the center of her universe, worth protecting at any cost. What kind of leverage? Information. He activated a hidden panel in his desk, revealing files that made her breath catch. Young-ho's been busy. The documents contained detailed intelligence on her father's operation, financial records showing payments from international crime syndicates, and most damning of all, communications discussing the Hassan bloodline asset in terms that made her skin crawl. They're planning to harvest genetic material from the twins. Min-jae's voice remained steady despite the horror of what he was revealing. Samples that could be used to create artificial heirs with supernatural abilities. How long have you known? Young-ho's betrayal revealed the scope, but I suspected foreign interest when your pregnancy was confirmed. He closed the files with deliberate care. Your children represent a breakthrough that could shift the balance of power between supernatural factions worldwide. And you didn't think to mention this earlier? I was protecting you from information that would have caused panic without providing solutions. His justification sounded reasonable, but Amina detected the careful construction of someone accustomed to manipulating truth. Now we have actionable intelligence. The realization hit her like physical force. You've been using me. Everything, the protection, the training, even the emotional intimacy, it's all been strategy.
No.
The word came out sharp enough to cut. It started as strategy. What it became. He stopped himself before finishing the thought. What did it become? Something I don't have words for. The honesty in his voice made her chest tighten with emotions she didn't want to examine. Somewhere between survival and subterfuge, genuine feelings had developed that complicated every calculation. I need to see those files myself. Amina. They're talking about harvesting from my children. I have the right to know everything. He handed over Young-ho's personal device, unlocked to reveal months of encrypted communications. As she scrolled through the evidence, her anger transformed into something colder and more dangerous. The betrayal ran deeper than simple disloyalty. Young-ho had been feeding intelligence to multiple factions, playing them against each other while positioning himself to profit from the chaos. Her father was just one client among many. But it was the final message thread that made her hands shake with rage. Target acquired labor. Extract twins alive. Mother expendable. The words were time-stamped just hours after her bleeding episode. He was going to kill me during childbirth and take the babies. Was being the operative phrase. Min-jae's voice carried lethal satisfaction. Young-ho won't be threatening anyone ever again. But his contacts will know the plan failed. They'll send others. Let them come. His smile was sharp enough to draw blood. They'll find us ready. The device buzzed with an incoming call from Young-ho's encrypted line. Min-jae gestured for silence before answering, switching to speaker mode. Status report. The voice was electronically distorted but unmistakably authoritative. Complications arose. Min-jae replied, mimicking Young-ho's speech patterns. Target is experiencing premature labor. Medical intervention required. Unacceptable. Extract samples immediately or eliminate the asset. Understood. Initiating final protocol. The call ended, leaving them in tense silence. Amina's contractions were beginning again, stress triggering the early labor that could either save or doom them all. They're coming tonight, she gasped between waves of pain. Aren't they? Almost certainly. Minjae was already moving toward the emergency protocols, which means we need to accelerate our timeline. For what? Everything. They're in the building. The security chief's voice crackled through the intercom as explosions rocked the mansion's lower levels. Multiple breaches on floors 2 through 6. Amina's scream tore through the medical wing as another contraction seized her body. The twins were coming whether the world was ready or not, their supernatural energy pulsing through her abdomen in waves that made the monitoring equipment spark and fail. How long? Minjae demanded, positioning himself between the delivery room entrance and the corridor where gunfire was growing closer. First baby's crowning, Dr. Kim announced, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. But the positioning is complicated. The sigil energy is interfering with normal delivery protocols. The building shuddered as something massive impacted the reinforced walls. Through the windows, Seoul's skyline flickered with emergency lights while helicopters circled like mechanical vultures. Sir, they've breached the medical level. A wounded guard stumbled through the doorway, blood streaming from a head wound. Armed teams moving toward the delivery ward. ETA, 3 minutes. Minjae's tactical mind processed threats with lethal efficiency. Seal all access points. Activate the curse ward barriers. Nothing gets through those doors. The barriers won't hold against curse serum weapons, the guard gasped. They came prepared for supernatural defenses. Amina's water broke in a rush of fluid that glowed with amber light, pooling on the sterile floor like liquid fire. The sigil markings across her body flared brighter, responding to the proximity of violence with ancient power that made the air itself tremble. Something's wrong with the baby's energy signatures. Dr. Kim's voice carried barely controlled panic. They're not just feeding on the curse, they're amplifying it. Amplifying how? The supernatural energy is building toward critical mass. If it releases during birth. His explanation was cut short by the sound of reinforced doors being blown apart 3 corridors away. Automatic weapons fire echoed through the ventilation system, accompanied by screams that spoke of massacre rather than surgical strikes. Push, Amina. The doctor's command came out sharp with urgency. We need the first twin delivered before they reach us. She bore down with strength she didn't know she possessed, supernatural energy coursing through her muscles like liquid lightning. The first babies had emerged, immediately followed by shoulders that seemed too large for her body to accommodate. It's a boy. Dr. Kim's voice carried wonder despite the chaos surrounding them. Perfect formation, but the sigil markings. The newborn's skin glowed with the same amber patterns that decorated his mother's body, ancient symbols writhing across his tiny form like living tattoos. His eyes opened to reveal irises that swirled with golden light, already aware in ways that defied medical understanding. My son. Minjae's voice broke as he reached toward the baby, but the child's energy field repelled his touch with visible force. He's rejecting me. Not rejecting, a familiar voice corrected from the doorway. Protecting. Yemi Hassan stepped into the delivery room, very much alive and radiating power that made the curse ward barriers flicker like dying flames. Her appearance had changed dramatically. Lean muscle replacing soft curves, scars mapping stories of violence across exposed skin, eyes that held knowledge too dangerous for ordinary minds. Hello, little sister. Her smile was sharp enough to draw blood. You've been busy. You're alive. Amina's voice came out as a sob between contractions as the second baby began its descent. 3 months of grief. 3 months of preparation. Yemi moved with predatory grace toward the medical equipment, hands already working to assess the delivery's progress. I've been protecting you from forces you couldn't comprehend. The car accident was staged to give me freedom to operate. Operate how? By infiltrating the organizations that want to harvest our bloodline. Yemi's expression grew grim as she examined the newborn boy. Our family curse isn't random genetic mutation, Amina. It's a breeding program that's been running for generations. Min Jae's weapon appeared in his hand with practice speed. You're working with them. I'm working against them. Yemi didn't flinch as the gun's barrel centered on her chest. The curse that made us valuable to supernatural factions also made us targets. I learned to fight by infiltrating their training programs. The second baby's arrival interrupted any response Min Jae might have made. The girl emerged in a rush of glowing fluid, her cries harmonizing with her brother's in frequencies that made the walls vibrate. Unlike her twin, she bore no visible sigil markings, appearing entirely human except for eyes that held the same swirling golden light. Twins with complementary abilities, Yemi observed, professional assessment overriding familial emotion. The boy carries external power manifestation. The girl's abilities are internalized. How do you know this? Because I've seen what happens when our bloodline reaches maturity. Yemi's voice carried weight that spoke of horrors witnessed firsthand. Our cousin in Lagos, our aunt in Morocco, all harvested for genetic material once their abilities fully developed. The truth hit Amina like physical force. That's why grandmother's pendant was so important. It wasn't just protective, it was identification. A tracking device hidden inside religious symbology. Yemi confirmed, producing the familiar amulet from beneath her combat gear. Every woman in our family who carried one ended up dead or disappeared. Then, why bring it here? Because now we're going to use their own system against them. The conversation was shattered by explosions that shook the entire building. Through the reinforced windows, they could see armed figures rappelling from helicopters, their equipment glowing with the same cursed serum energy that had nearly killed Amina days earlier. Father's final assault, Min Jae observed, tactical mind cataloging threats. He's brought international backup, not just backup. Yemi's expression grew deadly serious. Harvesters. They'll try to extract genetic material from the twins whether they survive the process or not. Amina struggled to sit up despite Dr. Kim's protests, protective instincts flaring as she gathered both babies against her chest. Over my dead body. That's exactly what they're counting on. Yemi checked her concealed weapons with mechanical precision. Dead mothers can't resist when they're cutting samples from their children. The delivery room doors exploded inward, revealing figures in tactical gear whose weapons hummed with supernatural energy. At their head stood Amina's father, his arms still bandaged from her bottle attack, but his eyes blazing with fanatic determination. My daughter. His voice carried twisted affection that made her skin crawl. You've caused so much trouble. Stay back. Min Jae positioned himself between the intruders and the medical bed, but his conventional weapons seemed inadequate against curse-enhanced equipment. The Shadow Lord's protection ends here. Her father's smile was pure predatory satisfaction. These twins will serve a higher purpose than your petty criminal empire. What purpose? Creating an army. The admission came out casually, as if discussing whether rather than genocide. Children bred from your bloodline will possess abilities that could tip the balance of power between nations. Imagine soldiers who can channel supernatural energy, weapons that think for themselves. Sister Sin, forgive or not.
Comment.
You're insane. I'm visionary. He gestured to his armed companions, who began setting up equipment that looked more medical than military. Your grandmother understood. She bred her daughters specifically to produce offspring with enhanced capabilities. Grandmother fought against the curse. Grandmother was the curse. The revelation hit like a sledgehammer. She made the original bargain that bound our bloodline to supernatural forces. Every generation since has been refining the process. Yemi moved with lethal grace, blades appearing in her hands as she flowed toward the nearest intruder. Steel met curse-enhanced armor in showers of sparks, her supernatural speed allowing her to strike faster than enhanced reflexes could follow. For abandoning you, she drove a blade through the first attacker's throat before spinning to engage the second. For being a coward when you needed me most. But there were too many of them. For every enemy Yemi eliminated, 2 more appeared to take their place. Min Jae fought with desperate efficiency beside her, but conventional tactics couldn't overcome the technological advantages their opponents wielded. Enough! Amina's father raised a weapon that glowed with sickly green light. Sedate them all. We'll extract what we need in controlled conditions. The cursed serum dart struck Yemi's center mass, dropping her to the floor as her enhanced abilities shut down like turned-off switches. She tried to speak, but only managed choking sounds as the chemical cocktail overwhelmed her system. "Sister." Amina's scream echoed through the chamber as she watched Yemi convulse on the blood-slicked floor. "Don't worry." Her father's voice was almost gentle as he approached the medical bed. "She'll live long enough to watch us take samples from your children. Then you can die together, just like you should have months ago." Min-jae lunged toward the bed, but two guards tackled him to the ground while a third pressed a cursed serum injector to his neck. His struggles grew weaker as the supernatural suppressant flooded his system. Perfect. Her father reached for the baby boy, whose golden eyes tracked the approaching threat with uncanny awareness. "Let's see what makes you so special." The infant's energy field flared as strange hands touched his skin. Power erupted outward in waves that shattered monitoring equipment and sent several guards flying backward into the walls. The building's lights flickered as the supernatural energy overloaded electrical systems. Incredible. Her father's eyes gleamed with avarice as he fought to maintain his grip on the struggling child. "The power levels are off any scale we've measured." "Put him down." Amina's voice carried maternal fury that made the air itself vibrate. "He's just a baby. He's the future of warfare." The cursed serum injector appeared in her father's free hand. "And you're an obsolete delivery system." Yemi's hand closed around a fallen guard's weapon, cursed serum suppressant not quite enough to completely shut down her enhanced reflexes. She rolled upward in a motion that should have been impossible, trigger finger finding its target with lethal precision. The shot took her father's center mass, spinning him away from the bed as the baby boy fell toward the floor. Amina caught her son with reflexes she didn't know she possessed, supernatural energy coursing through both children as they pressed against her chest. "For my sister's happiness," Yemi gasped, blood frothing from her lips as her father's return shot found its mark. "For the life I stole from her." "Yemi!" Amina's scream was lost in the chaos as emergency sirens wailed throughout the building. Her father crumpled beside Yemi, both siblings bleeding out on the delivery room floor as Min-jae fought to regain consciousness. The remaining guards fled as supernatural energy continued to cascade from the twins, making the building itself unstable. "We need medical intervention immediately." Dr. Kim worked frantically to stabilize both wounded patients while chaos reigned around them. But it was too late for meaningful intervention. Yemi's eyes found Amina's across the blood-soaked floor, her voice barely a whisper as life drained away. "The pendant, destroy it. Break the tracking system. Let them grow up free. Don't leave me again." "Never leaving." Yemi's hand pressed against her chest where their grandmother's amulet had always rested. "Just changing forms." The light faded from her eyes as the twins' energy signatures stabilized, their supernatural abilities settling into dormant patterns that would remain hidden until they reached maturity. 3 days later, Seoul's most exclusive wedding venue hosted a ceremony that redefined the concept of symbolic union. Amina stood before an altar draped with fabric that bore her children's sigil patterns, the twins sleeping peacefully in ceremonial carriers that hummed with protective energy. "My shadows, your light, eternal." Min-jae's vows carried weight that transcended mere words as he knelt before her in the traditional submission pose. "Our children, our legacy, our future written in power that transcends worlds. Our twins, our reign." Amina's response bound them not just as husband and wife, but as rulers of an empire that stretched beyond conventional understanding. From darkness into light, from curse into blessing. The kiss that sealed their union was gentle despite the violence that had brought them together, witnessed by representatives of supernatural factions who understood that the balance of power had shifted irrevocably. "Was I chosen or cursed?" she whispered against his lips as cameras captured the moment for posterity. "Both." His answer carried absolute certainty. "And so was I." But even as they celebrated new beginnings, shadows moved in the margins of their happiness. Security footage from the hospital revealed that Jung-ho's body had disappeared from the morgue 3 hours after being pronounced dead, leaving only bloodstains and the faint scent of cursed serum in the air. The final frame showed a figure in medical scrubs uploading encrypted files to international servers, data streams carrying genetic information that would reshape criminal enterprises across 3 continents. Min-jae's phone buzzed with an untraceable message. The real curse starts now. Your twin's DNA is already being distributed to interested parties. Enjoy your honeymoon. It will be brief. Our war's just begun, he murmured, gathering his new family closer as threats materialized from enemies they couldn't yet identify. In the nursery that night, a shadow moved past windows that should have been impenetrable to outside surveillance. The twins slept peacefully in their reinforced cribs, but hidden cameras captured their energy signatures for transmission to buyers whose purposes remained terrifyingly unclear. Jung-ho smiled from his concealed position, cursed serum modifications having granted him abilities that transcended normal human limitations. Death was merely inconvenience when science could repair what violence destroyed. The Shadow Lord's weakness had been identified. The twins were indeed the key to universal power. And the harvest was just beginning.